AP World History Period 5, Key Concept 5.3 is really focused on revolutions. This is a fan favorite where all the rebellions are happening, the revolutions across the Atlantic and around the world. And I'm going to tell you exactly what to focus on because there's a lot of details in this key concept, but you can really target your studying and focus specifically on the most important parts. So here we go. All right, 5.3. So this entire concept is all about revolutions and nation state building. So there are a lot of rebellions that are happening at this time period, and most of them can really be, tied back to the Enlightenment. So the Enlightenment is when we're getting these new ideas and approaches to understanding the natural world and human society. And they're really they're super questioning the role of religion, and they're promoting reason over revelation, right? In periods 4 or 3 or 2, religion is such a highly accepted and respected way to govern. But the Enlightenment thinkers, they're questioning religion and thinking more about reason and trying to understand why we do things and what the best way to do them is. So some of the new political ideas were coming from these. These are 4 specific Enlightenment thinkers that are worth knowing. Voltaire would have been specifically connected to religious tolerance, and Rousseau was about the social contract, right? So make sure that you note not only these guys, but the specific topics that they're connected to. Locke is another one that's coming up a lot. He's a huge influencer of the Declaration of Independence, and he is talking about natural rights, the rights that all humans should be granted, like life and liberty. And then finally, Montesquieu was really focused on 3 branches of government and checks and balances. So, these Enlightenment thinkers lived during times of turmoil in Europe, whether it was the English Civil War, the Glorious Revolution, and they're questioning, why are we fighting over certain things, and what is the best way for a country to govern, and how do we protect rights of people? How do we really make things fair? So these are their ways of thinking about restructuring government. And then also during this time period, we're also seeing new social ideas. There's really a push for women's suffrage that we haven't seen before this time. And that's happening all across the world. In this time period, New Zealand is actually the very first country to grant women the right to vote. But we're really seeing those suffrage movements pick up in a lot of different countries. And then the abolition movements against slavery are not only rising in this period, but peaking. Slavery itself is becoming abolished across the world in the Caribbean and in Latin America, in South America, North America. So we're really seeing abolition movements take hold and succeed with slavery being abolished. And then of course the end of serfdom. So Russia is an example of that, of ending and freeing the serfs, which is a big reason why Russia was able to industrialize. That's a huge new group of workers that are available. Some of the major documents to know in this time period that are really connected to the Enlightenment are the 3 revolutionary documents: the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Rights of Man, and the Jamaica Letter. A lot of times you're going to see those in DBQ or in multiple choice questions. They're good uses of primary source documents to analyze. And so another movement that we're seeing here that are revolutionary, but they're not necessarily rebellions, are the rise of nationalism and those unifications that we're seeing. So nationalism itself, really takes hold in this time period. We don't really see that before. The idea of a nation state, that you have a country where everyone in the country has a common language, a common culture. That's not a movement before. That's something that's very much accepted today, but it didn't really exist before. So, for example, German unification is linking together these like smaller states that all speak German and that share the same German culture. And so they're linking them together, they're unifying to make Germany, and Italy is doing the same thing. They're unifying these smaller states of these Italian states and unifying to become Italy. And those are like some really big movements that do happen. A lot of people are growing frustrated with imperialism, right? So, as we mentioned in the last key concept, all of these people around the world that are being exploited are, you know, not happy about it. Like, they never were happy about it. But once enough people are aware of, like, we can stand up, we could do something, these different rebellions, these revolutions are gonna form. So we're seeing some of the challenges to like were to centralize governments, like the Marathan over the Mughals in India, or for example, colonial rebellions in places like the United States and Haiti and South America. These rebellions are overthrowing their colonizers and they're becoming independent nations. Haiti is an example of the first and really the only successful slave rebellion that leads to an independent state. And then, of course, the American Revolution, where the United States becomes independent from Great Britain. And like I had said, those slave resistance movements are really important. Where we at this time we had so many slaves that had been brought to the Caribbean and Brazil in particular. Brazil had the most slaves from Africa because of the Atlantic slave trade, and so these different societies are starting to form where slaves are resisting to their oppressors. And anti-colonial movements are also happening in India and in China with the Sepoy and the Boxer rebellion, where people are rising up against, like colonial rules that were just not fair and were not okay in the cultures, and we're just completely ignorant of Indian or Chinese culture, and so the people are rising up against those things. Some of the other rebellions that we're seeing were actually influenced more by religion. So, for example, the ghost dance in the United States with Native Americans, the ghost dance was really like channeling Native American, almost like animism, but doing these dances that were hopefully going to like save them. These tribes knew like things are not going well. The Americans are kind of creeping in, and so these are examples of rebellions that were influenced by religion, but are all of these things are getting at the same thing. This, imperialism was no fun for every other person except for the white man, right? So all these people across the world are rebelling and to, push back against those oppressors. So, really what's fueling these things are these like new transnational ideologies, these ideas that cross boundaries. You could have lived anywhere in the world and been a a proponent of these things, something like democracy or liberalism, socialism, communism, right? Like these things don't exist in a bounded area. They exist across the world. And those are some like political ideologies. Another big one is feminism in the social realm. So Mary Wollstonecraft, she was a female Enlightenment thinker that we definitely shouldn't forget. She is someone that talked about rights for women and feminism. Degas was someone that also in the French Revolution, the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen is only talking about half the population of France, and she had the guts to say, "Hey, what about us? What about the women?" And of course, the French government did not want to listen, and she was actually one of the only women that was killed during the Reign of Terror. She was beheaded. And in the United States, Seneca Falls was a convention of feminists and actually abolitionists. Frederick Douglass was there as well. But these feminist movements, this is the first wave of feminism. And this is a really important moment that's leading to the suffrage movements that we had mentioned. So, in this example, this like French Revolution, this one is from the second French Revolution, not the first one. But this France, this liberty leading the people, this is a good example of like fighting for liberty, for justice. Hey, this is High Level History with Miss Emerald. Be sure to subscribe for more AP World History videos. Follow me on Instagram at High Love History for a woke version of your AP World textbook.